Hello guys. Hello guys, check it out. Kirby's wearing my shades. Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jimmy. What am I talking about to you today? Today I'm actually talking about the Switch and its many controller options that it has. Essentially, what is it, all three of them? Actually, no, all four of them. So guys, without skipping a beat, let's get right to it, yeah? So the Switch came out 2 weeks ago today. When am I going to talk about these controllers, you might ask? I'm actually just going to talk about how they feel in your hands, a few gripes I have with them, a couple things they do right. So, without further ado, let's actually talk about the Switch in its handheld mode actually. So the Joy-Cons themselves, they feel absolutely great on the Switch. It feels like you're holding a, how can I put it? Since it's just a huge glorified GBA, the non-SP, it feels really good actually. It has some weight to it, so it doesn't feel cheap. It definitely feels like you're holding something worth $300. Whoa, shoot, man. It definitely feels good. I do like the way it feels. The triggers, they feel alright. Not the best triggers in the world, for sure. The 3DS has better triggers. Even the new 3DS, especially the XL iterations, I don't know, I just really like the way those feel in comparison to these. The PlayStation Vita feels a little better than that. The Joy-Cons on the Switch in handheld mode. The sticks themselves, they don't have a lot of range to them, but that's probably for the best, just because you really don't want those things moving too far and too much, just because, you know, wear and tear on those parts. If there is one thing I do have a gripe about, it's just the fact that it's actually two things. The buttons feel a little bit too cramped together. The buttons feel a little bit too small as well. And well, with that being too small, there's actually something else. And that's the fact that the select and start, or minus and plus, are a little bit too far apart. They're literally on two separate Joy-Cons. I definitely do understand why that's the case. And that's actually because when you break them off and you hand it to someone else to play with you, so you can play Super Bomberman R or whatever the hell, you can play with them. But that does lead to something else. The Joy-Cons separate from the Switch when you're playing with them like that. So let's talk about that. So Joy-Cons like that, they feel a little bit too cramped for my liking. This just goes back to what I was saying, and that is they just feel too cramped. My hands are pretty average size. They're not huge. Average size. The buttons feel a little bit too close together, so the stick and the buttons, too cramped. I just don't like the way that feels with it. Though for games like Super Bomberman R, they're definitely responsive. I do like it. It just feels like a super tiny, really tiny Super Nintendo controller. It's alright. I mean, Nintendo usually gets controllers pretty goddamn right, and this I don't know. I don't like the way it feels, you feel me? But yeah, other than that though, the battery life on these things, they definitely work out extremely well. I believe it's about like a 20-hour battery life on them. The Joy-Cons do charge when they're actually on your Switch and you're playing in handheld mode. They definitely do charge on there. Let's actually talk about the adapter as well for your Joy-Con, so you can make it to one single controller. It's alright, honestly. It's alright. It feels a little bit too big, mainly because you have this you have a giant fucking box that extends in the bottom. It feels a little bit obstructive. I don't like that. That it just feels a little awkward. I'm pretty sure with time I'll definitely get used to it. I mean, honestly, I'd much rather prefer playing in handheld mode than to use that thing. It just feels a little bit too weird to me. But let's actually go on to the main attraction, and that is the Switch Pro controller. This guy right here is honestly the best controller you will use on the Switch. If you're gonna pick up a Switch anytime, I definitely recommend picking this guy up. So one thing I forgot to mention, and that's the fact that the Joy-Cons actually have an NFC reader, so you can scan your amiibos, you can do all that jazz. This guy has an NFC reader too, actually on the Switch logo itself. So right dead center, smack dab. This controller feels really, really good to hold. It has some really nice weight to it. It's actually heavier than the PS3 controller, so it feels really, really nice. Like, it feels extremely nice. We don't have pressure-sensitive triggers anymore. I guess Nintendo stopped doing that after the GameCube. I can understand why on a console like this, because, you know, you're going to take it with you. So if you do get those GameCube Virtual Console games, they'll most likely make one of the triggers act like a midway point between fully pressed and pressed on Virtual Console games. So for like Super Mario Sunshine, if there's one thing I don't like about this, it's the fact that the D-pad feels a little bad, and that's because the D-pad actually pushes in all the way. So it feels like a giant button. Usually Nintendo, they're pretty good. I feel like as though they add like this little ball in the center of the D-pad, so it doesn't push in all the way. It's not too bad though. It's pretty much my only major gripe with it, and it's pretty minor. I know there'll be other people who won't like it just because of that. You know, anyone who plays fighting games competitively. But I've been playing Waku Waku 7 on this guy, and actually the Switch Joy-Cons on the Switch in handheld mode, and they definitely feel pretty goddamn good. So yeah, with that, guys, let's go back and talk about everything again. So, Switch Joy-Cons on the Switch in handheld mode feel pretty good. The directional pad, which is just 4 buttons, like the C buttons on the N64, it feels pretty good. It feels like a PS3 controller, essentially. A PS3 controller, where there are just 4 separate directional points on the controller. It's not a huge D-pad. It's not bad. It definitely feels alright. The sticks feel alright. They don't feel that bad. You can definitely be worse. The Switch Joy-Con in separate by itself, it's not bad. It definitely... Buttons feel a little cramped. That's my only gripe with it. Batteries are alright. And let's talk about the Pro Controller. Pro Controller definitely feels alright. It is, quite frankly, the best way to play. If you're going to pick up a Switch, pick up at least one of these guys. If you have friends that are going to play with you, don't be an asshole. Buy them a Pro Controller as well, so you can have 2. You can play Street Fighter 2 that way. Or the Neo Geo Pocket inspired fighter. That'll be out soon. But yeah, guys, this has been Jimmy. And remember, guys, stay radical, alright, guys?